Hi, I am Lois Llewellyn. We all desire spiritual growth, but do not always know where to begin. On A New Level Awaits You, we provide steps to guide you into your divine assignment and reach new levels of greatness in the Lord. You will begin to soar above every obstacle and enter into your specific assignment. So get ready to go from glory to glory as new levels await you. As we continue talking about perseverance, today we're going to be focusing on how that perseverance requires an attitude shift. So as we focus on this, I want to begin here with first by looking at James, because it's always been a fairly challenging scripture for me. But it says, my fellow believers, okay, when it seems as though you are facing nothing but difficulty, see it as an invaluable opportunity to experience the greatest joy that you can. What? How is this? Other scriptures, or they say, consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. I challenge this. I mean, how do you continue to see it as pure joy when you're going through some things that, it might range from being, just annoying and irritable to something horrific? How do we see these things as pure joy? Every person that I talk to has experienced many trials, just like you have experienced many, many trials. And I have experienced these many, many trials. How do we look at this as pure joy? I don't know that this was my initial startup emotion. I mean, listen, we've lost some people in our lives. How do we consider that joy? How do we go through major devastations like we've experienced, with the hurricanes and with the fires and all of this, and yet we're supposed to face these things with pure joy? Don't you find that a little bit challenging? Because I know I do. And here James is, what he's saying is that he wants us to look at these things in the very opposite of what we actually do. I find that James speaks quite bluntly in this book about how our responses and actions should be to life. If you remember, he was a cousin of Jesus. He was also considered James the Less, or the Little, and they're thinking it was because of his low stature. But all through this, his main message is on patience and perseverance. Do you think he learned some of that? Not just in who he is, but maybe as an apostle, what he went through, in fact, they say he was the first of the apostles to be martyred. Had his head cut off. Isn't that awful? I mean, I know. It's like, do you think maybe he learned some things through this process? Well, I know that, like I said before, many of our lives, we've had so many lessons over the past few years. And my question, even as I ask myself this, and I'll ask this to you, is have we truly learned how to persevere? Because these life trials they're just never ending. It's just one thing after another. And how many times have I heard that? It's one thing right after another. Well, when you look at the scripture and it says to count it as pure joy, or consider it as pure joy. But the word count really is a term that means evaluate, to evaluate it. So James isn't telling us to laugh about these situations. He's not telling us to go around be happy or whatever. He's encouraging us to evaluate the way we look at these trials. And so he's calling us as believers, I think, to a new and maybe improved attitude that considers God's trials from God's perspective. I said that wrong. He's asking us believers to develop a new and improved attitude that considers these trials that we're going through from God's perspective. James wants us to know, to expect. We're going to have to expect trials of various natures. He tells that in verse 2 in all of this. But in the Christian life, we're going to get it. In life in general, we're going to get it. It's just life. But he's telling us basically, I think, we've got to get prepared. We've got to not get caught off guard when a sudden trial comes upon us. Because it is a way, it's part of life, it's part of what happened. We just never know. And Jesus told his disciples in John 16:33, he said, "In this world you will have trouble. These things I've spoken to you, so that in me you may have peace." Now, Jesus is telling us we're going to have some trouble in this world. But he said, I told you these things because I'm telling you that in me, you're going to have peace in it. In the world, you're going to have tribulation, but take courage. I have overcome the world. Now, typically, as I have discovered in all my many trials that I've had throughout my life, it's not an occasion for joy. So he isn't suggesting that we pursue trials or these hardships as joyful, like I said. But we're not supposed to pretend that trials are enjoyable to endure. I don't believe that's what he's saying either. Trials are difficult, they're painful, but they exist for a purpose. And I believe that what I've discovered is that trials have the potential of producing something good in us. And for this reason, they are the opportunity for expressing joy. Knowing there's a bigger picture, knowing that we've got this bigger picture of what maybe God might be wanting to do in our lives, we can consider trials as things to rejoice in. Even though joy is contrary to our normal reaction, James is encouraging us, he's urging us actually to work on changing our attitude toward the troubles that we're having, from dread, I think. Many of us, we're just dreading. It's almost like we're looking forward to what's going to be next. Oh my goodness, there's, or that comes in 3. How many times have I heard that? But he's urging us, can we start looking at these things from all of the negative sides of things to positive expectation, to faith, to growing in our trust, and even in joy. If we look back over the many trials we've gone through, what stands out? What stands out? I thought about this for myself. Does fear, anger, does it hurt, does it pain? What is it that we're looking upon? What is it that we're reflecting on? What is it that is negative about that just seems to consume us? But are we to look at that? Are we to focus on all of that? Because many people do. But what I've learned is, or do I reflect on the strength that I carried through that trial? Do I look at the peace that resided within me during that trial? Or do I look at the faith that I increased and grew in that brought me through? How do we see the joy in these situations? This is how we do it. We look at not on all the negative stuff, but we start to look at, oh my goodness, I can handle this much more. I can do this so much better now than what I had before. Yesterday I have a trainer, And this is just to build up my body after some of the things that I've gone through. And I've just stuck with it. I persevered through it. But as I was training yesterday, I started out basically with 2-pound weights. And I know you're going to laugh about that. But where I was so weak, this is where I started out with the 2 pounds. And even that was heavy for me at that time. And so here I am 2 or 3 years later. And now I have gone from, I remember her doing like 2 pounds and then 5 pounds and then 10 pounds. And then it would be 10, 12, 15. And yesterday she said, today I'm going to challenge you a little bit more. And so she did 12, 15, and 20. And what I noticed about this was like, oh my goodness, my first reaction was, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be challenged today. I just want to just kind of get through this exercise or whatever, this training. And yet I decided immediately I was going to push that aside and I was going to do this. So the 10s or the 12s and the 15s I can do now. And I can reach the goal of how many repetitions that she wants from me. But when she went and got the 20s and she put them in, and she said, all I'm expecting of you to do is 1. I thought, well, that's interesting. She said, just do 1. We're just going to work our way up. And so I took the 20-pound one and I did the 1. And then I thought, you know what? I can do another. So I did another. And then I said, I can do another. So I did 3. And yet when it came to the 4th time of trying to, I could not move. I could not lift it up. I could not go any further. And so I said to her, I said, what's happening right now? Why am I stuck in this place where I cannot even budge this? I could not even lift even a small centimeter any longer. I did the 3 and that was it. And so she explained to me how the building up, this is why she does this. She's just building those muscles up, building the muscles up, building the muscles up. And so next time, I'm sure at some point, we're going to continue adding on the 20s, because now I know that I press through that I can probably do 4 or 5 the next time. Now, I know that sounds silly for some of you. But when I look at this, he's telling us here, he doesn't just say, count it all joy. He doesn't just say count it joy, but he says count it all joy. So when we're going through these trials, I felt that was like way too much yesterday. I know this is probably a silly way of explaining this. But when I saw that as a negative, I knew in my head I couldn't do it. When I saw it as a positive, you know what? This is advancement for me. This can be joyful for me. This is like, woohoo, look what I can do. Then I started to realize that these testings, these things can be for all joy. He's not doing these things for punishment. It's not because God wants to harm us in any way. She was overlooking me. She wasn't doing any of it to harm me. What I realized is that she's trying to build me up so that I can lift things up again, so that I can carry things. I was noticing, like even in going into when I fly, I had trouble lifting my suitcase up, my small little one that I lift up, and people would have to help me. When I went last week, I was able to carry my own suitcase. Little things, little testings. but I saw the joy. I was pleased that I didn't have to. I could do this. It was joyful for me to see that I can take care of this. So what I find is that if we start and say the negative side of all these things in these trials, our own thought life just starts to plummet downward. In fact, we consider, their lies, they'll push us down so fast and furious. And we need to start grabbing a hold of this and recognizing that these are just lies, because let's face it, I've often said I'll never be who I was before. I never will be able to do these things. I'll never, and you can fill in the blank. But now I'm doing some of the very things that I said I would never be able to do. I'm watching this TV series and it's just light and foolish. It's kind of comical. But I kind of chuckle each time, because whenever the character or one of the main characters, whenever they think thoughts that are typically not theirs, it's actually a very bad thought, an evil thought. This small cartoon figure is shown hovering over the character's head, that person's head. And what I've noticed is that they'll kind of entertain it for a few seconds, and then all of a sudden they'll just kind of push it away. And that little cartoon figure will kind of go for a little bit, and then it will come back and try to, and they're laughing. This character, this figure is kind of laughing and trying to put these thoughts into this person's head. And the person has to basically push it away, punch it away, and just refuse. And I thought, isn't this the very way for us? These are menacing thoughts that want to take over and cause us to just entertain them and entertain all the lies, all the things that we can and we can't do, so that we do not push forward. We do not persevere through these life trials. Instead, we just go and give up. We lay on the couch, we become depressed. These things just consume our minds. And we have to take and push them away and move forward. See, this is where faith is tested. Will we cave in, or will we trust God for what he's doing as he works in us and through us? And if we choose right, I chose right. I chose to try that 20-pounder. You know what happened? It's going to grow me in my physical strength. When we choose right in what we receive inside and how we go through, if we change our attitude, we will indeed grow in our spiritual faith. Challenges often strengthen our minds. And because our mind works through the brain, a strong mind means a strong brain. So challenges bring out the best in us and heal our brains, actually, depending on the reaction to what we're going through. Choosing to get to the other side of a challenge brings a sense of happiness, believe me, in the achievement, and sets the stage for the next challenge with an addition of new skills gained. The strength of character that we build through this is reflected through what's going through our mind and through our brain, and helps us to sustain us in the future. When I decided that I was pushed into it, I was forced into it, my balance was off, had difficulty walking, I had to rely on a device to help me to walk. And I decided right then and there, that's not how I wanted to spend the rest of my life. That's not how I wanted to be weak and unable to do what God wanted me to do. And so I decided to take on the challenge and to do this strength training in order to build up my very muscles so that I have stamina to stand strong and to be able to do the things that God calls me to do. See, this is the same thing. We might start out small, but God will keep on going. He'll keep on pushing us. He keeps on directing us. Perseverance is just that. It's not one great big huge leap. It's taking those small steps and moving us forward. And as we grow, as we choose the right things, if we choose to be happy, change our attitudes, push through those challenges, enjoy the process of developing our abilities. Now that's a biggie because I don't always enjoy going. I don't always enjoy doing it. I'm often very exhausted when I leave, but I know it's the good thing to do. It is the right thing to do. And I know in the end that it is building muscles, whether it's in my brain or my body, whatever. The attitude change is building muscles here for me to do what I need to do. And here's the thing. If I couldn't do any that day, I have another chance. I can pick it up again. If we fail, we need to pick ourselves up again, even if we don't feel like it, because great things are happening in our brain. Great things are happening in our muscles. That's what I was told. And so, despite how we initially feel, choosing to become happy will become the energy source that keeps us going. It keeps us going. James 1:3 says, "For you know that when faith is tested, it stirs up power within you to endure all things." That's out of the Passion Bible. Wow. It explains how God intends trials to test our faith and to produce spiritual perseverance. We know that when your faith is tested, it stirs up power within you to endure all things. When we choose to keep on going, when we choose to stand up, it's that power within, joy within, strength within, faith within. All of these things get stirred up in us and we can endure. Have you ever watched somebody, go through horrendous things? I am amazed at the men and women that have lost limbs, and yet they'll go and do races. I am amazed at the perseverance that they've taken to press on through. Beyond all odds, believe it, all odds. And I want to tell you today, when we change our attitude, we can endure all things. We can choose to have these testings take us down into the very depths, plummet us so that we barely can rise up again. Or we can choose to consider it pure joy. Choose to know that when we're being tested, when we're going through another trial, that this is when our faith is going to get stirred up, and that power within us is going to help us to conquer all things, and that we can move over into the victory lap. We can move over into that lane that puts us far out beyond other people because they've become hopeless and given up. I pray today that this message will resonate within you. I have often wondered, how did I make it? How did I manage to get through all that I've gone through and still come out on the other side? I mean, I still have my times. I still have my trials. We all will. That's our initial response. But what's important about this is that will we choose to look at what God is doing in our lives, that these trials aren't to destroy us, perhaps. Maybe that's the enemy's verdict. That's what they want. But what God will do, he'll take that, he'll turn it around so that we will persevere in a way that we will have this power stirred up Maybe this laid there dormant for a while, but it will stir up and it will cause that fighter to come arise in us so that we can do all the things that God is calling us to do. My prayer for you today is, God, let them choose joy. Let them choose to evaluate how they're responding to the very things that are happening in their lives. And Lord God, I pray that they will choose today that have their faith rise up, so that power rise up. Your power within them will rise up so that they can become overcomers, that they will endure all things that life tries to throw at them. I believe that God is strengthening us to beyond, like I said, this is still kind of kicking off in that tenacious warrior aspect, that book that I've written. And I want you to see that in this is an attitude that we can have, that we can overcome. We can move past these life trials. In fact, we can thrive. We can thrive. And when we change our attitude, when we change how we see things, we will thrive. We're not just getting through it. We will thrive beyond in a powerful way that will cause us to rise up as mighty, mighty people of God who are major overcomers. So go check out this book, Tenacious Warriors, Thriving Beyond Life's Trials. You can get it on my website, loisfwelling.com, or you can go on to Amazon. And I have other books there too. I have other courses that you can check out as well. So bless you as you rise up and change your attitude today to consider all things joyful. I want to thank you for watching and joining me on this journey as we go higher. Expect to grow, expand your territory, and enter into new levels of intimacy with the Lord. Check out my website at loisfwelling.com for books, online courses, podcasts, and other resources to help you soar in the Lord. Are you interested in increasing your confidence, being able to speak assertively, subdue your fears, manage life situations effectively, and overcome rejection or betrayal so that you can tenaciously stand back up again? Then you must sign up for a free strategy session so we can design a plan specifically for you. I now offer one-on-one coaching sessions with group sessions coming soon. My heart is to equip and make disciples and advance them into living a life more abundantly. Yes, my website is loisfwelling.com. Check it out, and I hope to be talking to you soon.